I'm Chris Tour, President and CEO of Roboworld. This is my son Logan. Today we're going to shoot some video and show you how to install a typical Robosuit on this Fanuc R1000 IA arm. First things first, let's talk a little bit about the anatomy of the robot and in the nomenclature that we at Roboworld use. It's pretty consistent with what the market uses, but if you look down at the very base, that gray casting is called the stationary base. Immediately above that, you have this section here, which encompasses the servo motors, joint 2, and coming around to the back side, where joint 3 is, this is called the lower arm. As we transition to the back of the upper arm, this is typically referred to as the shoulder. You have the torque tube, joint 4, and essentially the wrist and robot tool flange. Now, some of this nomenclature changes depending upon whether we're suiting a KUKA robot, an ABB robot. They could be referred to as axes, joints, or in Yaskawa parlance, the S, the L, the U, the R, the B, and T axis. Somebody's always got to be a little bit different. But in any event, this is roughly the home position. If you put your robot in roughly this position, it will make for a very easy installation. A few other comments. Now, this is a relatively modest size robot. If you were suiting something bigger, such as maybe an R2000 or certainly an M2000, you're going to need ladders, potentially some scaffolding. Just think through those items ahead of time. Prior to installing the suit, especially if your robot's been operating in an extreme operating environment, consider wiping the robot down with a simple soap solution. Simple green works great. Don't use harsh chemicals. Don't avoid the toluenes and acetones, but you might consider using a dilute soap and isopropyl alcohol just to wipe the robot clean. It's not important that the suit go on a clean robot, but the cleaner it is, the better. Let's talk sync markers or synchronization markers for just a moment. These are small strips of either tape or they can be aluminum plates that other OEMs might use to allow for proper alignment of the joints. If they're on the robot, make sure to remove the aluminum plate sync markers prior to suit installation. If you fail to do so, they will behave just like a scissor and tear the suit, and that is unwarranted damage. So make sure you do a proper walkthrough from tool flange to S-axis or first axis to make sure that those sync markers are removed. What we're going to do now is unbox the Robosuit and show you how to identify what component you're holding. So if you look on the inside of the suit, you will find a production tag. On that tag, it will tell you what cover this goes to. And if you recall, the previous section where we identified the parts of the robot, this will be going around the stationary base, the gray casting down below. So Logan, let's install this. And this is closed using a simple Velcro seam that runs from the floor of the shop all the way up to just below joint 1 on the robot. So now that the stationary base cover is attached, we're going to transition to the robot's lower arm. It looks pretty daunting from afar, but the easiest way to identify it is by this circular ring that gets located at joint 3. So while Logan buttons up the lower arm, we're going to transition to the robot's shoulder. And again, the easiest identifying mark is this large plastic ring. We'll show you how this engages with the lower arm's J3 ring shortly. All right, so this is the joint 3 ring at on the Fanuc R1000, and just like you'll soon see at J4, this lower arm portion that has the finished material on the outside is going to sit over the top of the shoulder component. So Logan and I are going to demonstrate how to install that now. Okay, notice that it just slides inside this ring, and then up here is the closure and snap, and that's going to hold everything in place. And now we're going to transition to the fourth and last piece of the R1000 suit, the wrist. It's easiest if you just release the ring and the Velcro a little bit on the shoulder component, because the ring at J4 installs underneath it. And you can see where the marking for J4 is here. That's where you want to position the ring. And you see how it just sits inside and then attaches at the J4 ring itself. One thing to note before we put the cover on, you want to clamp the suit at this diameter. You do not want to clamp it on the part of the tool flange that rotates. If you do that, the suit's going to twist. So clamp on the casting itself, the non-movable part of J6. So these cutouts in the wrist are so that you can still get access to the J4 peripheral mounting pad locations. There are 2 threaded bosses here and here, and there's another 2 on the other side of the suit. This is intentional, and you'll also see mounting boss locations on the torque tube, to here, access to your ES and air connections here, along with power connections and cameras and other accessory connections. All right, and finally, we're going to simulate the stainless steel worm gear clamp that comes with your Robosuit with a simple zip tie. If you have to remove or replace that, feel free to use a zip tie. They work just as well. Again, we want to clamp on the non-rotating portion of the tool flange. We're going to stay well away from the rotating tool piece itself. And just like that, 20 minutes with Logan and I, and we have a Fanuc R1000 IA protected. Now that the suit's been installed, the final element to sort of what we refer to as break the suit in is to jog the robot. If you have a routine that's already programmed, feel free to run that at roughly 40 to 50% servo motor speeds. If you don't, simply exercise the robot using the teach pendant starting at the base, joint 1, all the way through joint 6, so that the suit can naturally settle into each of the joints and bellow locations. We do business with some of the largest automation OEMs on the planet. ABB, Fanuc, KUKA, Yaskawa, Universal, Staubli, the list goes on. If you're running into an issue with a particular robot that needs protection, reach out to us. We'll work with you to get the CADs and 2D design files to get a suit in your possession.